Welcome to Daily Review, your daily dose of literary exploration. We dive into books that spark curiosity and ignite growth. While our passion often leads us to nonfiction reads that empower and improve your life, no book is off limits. From gripping thrillers to insightful memoirs and compelling fiction to historical accounts, we're here to share and discuss all the interesting reads we discover. Tune in for your next great book idea. Thank you so much for tuning in to Daily Review. We truly appreciate you joining us for your daily dose of literary exploration. Your support means the world to us and helps us continue to share these amazing books with you. Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever found yourself saying yes when every fiber of your being screamed no, or maybe felt completely overwhelmed by demands, unsure where your responsibilities end, and, well, someone else's begin? Today, we're diving into a topic that promises to transform your life, offering not just relief, but profound freedom and deeper relationships. Our mission today is to extract the most potent insights from the incredible book, Boundaries. When to say yes, how to say no to take control of your life, by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. This isn't just theory, folks. It's really a practical guide to reclaiming control and living a more intentional life.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is how often we misunderstand the very concept of boundaries. It seems simple, but it's really not. This deep dive will clarify what they are, reveal some common pitfalls, traps, really, and show us how deeply rooted these patterns can be, often stemming, from our earliest experiences. We'll explore not just what boundaries are, but really dig into why they matter so much for our spiritual and emotional well-being.
Absolutely. So whether you're prepping for a big change, maybe feeling stretched thin, or just curious about how to navigate complex relationships with more grace and truth, well, this deep dive is definitely for you. Get ready for some aha moments that might just surprise you.
What are boundaries? Defining your personal property lines.
Right. Let's start by painting a picture. What does a life without healthy boundaries actually feel like? The book does a great job with Sherry's experience. I think a lot of us can probably relate to this. Sherry had this compulsive need to say yes, even when she really, really didn't want to, even lying about being busy.
Mm-hmm. That internal conflict is so palpable.
Exactly. They describe her heart sinking when Phyllis Renfro called about the women's ministries retreat. Phyllis says, "Hope I'm not disturbing anything."
And Sherry's immediate response.
"Certainly you aren't disturbing anything," even though she totally was deeply disturbed.
Right. And that's such a key moment because it highlights the dishonesty, not just to Phyllis, but to herself.
And then you have the contrast with Margie,
Yeah.
Phyllis's coordinator, who just cancels because of priorities at home. No big drama.
Yeah, Margie clearly had her boundaries in place. It just shows the difference so starkly. Sherry's stuck, overriding her own feelings. When we look at Sherry's struggle, that second voice in her head, the one telling her the truth, it's a voice she consistently silenced.
Yeah.
And that raises a huge question. What's the cost of doing that? Consistently overriding that internal voice. The book makes it clear. It leads directly to feeling pulled in a million directions. It leads to resentment, burnout.
Total burnout.
And ultimately a loss of personal control. You feel like everyone else is running your life.
It's a cycle, isn't it? You get stretched thinner, people get used to it, and they don't even realize the toll it's taking.
Exactly. So maybe take a second and think about your own Sherry moments. When have you said yes out of obligation or fear? When it wasn't a genuine yes, what did that cost you emotionally, physically even?
That's a powerful reflection point. So, okay, if that's the problem, what are boundaries? What do they look like? The book uses this great analogy, property lines.
Mm-hmm.
In the real world, you go to the courthouse, look at a map, there's a clear line. This is mine, that's yours. You hold the deed.
Tangible, visible.
Right. But in the spiritual or emotional world, it's way less clear. The book says these spiritual boundaries are just as real, but often harder to see. They're about defining your soul, guarding your heart, like Proverbs says.
And crucially, they define what you are responsible for.
Okay, let's talk about that responsibility piece.
Yeah, this is fascinating. The authors draw this distinction rooted in their interpretation of biblical ideas between responsible for and responsible to. They point to Galatians 6.2, carry each other's burdens. That shows our responsibility to others. We're meant to support each other.
Okay, responsible to, got it.
But they argue, nowhere are we commanded to have other control. We spend so much energy trying to control others, right?
Yeah, too true.
But the book's stance is, we are not responsible for other people's choices, not their feelings, their problems, their growth. That's their property. Our property is our own life, our thoughts, feelings, behaviors. That's what we're responsible for.
That distinction is huge. It clarifies so much.
It really does. It means you can be caring and supportive without taking on their entire load, you know?
No, and this is where it gets really interesting. Boundaries aren't walls. That's a key point they make.
Yes, not about isolating yourself.
The Bible talks about community, being one with others. But even in community, everyone has their own space, their own property.
Exactly. The book puts it beautifully. Property lines be permeable enough to allow passing and strong enough to keep out danger.
Permeable but strong. I like that.
It's dynamic. Think back to Sherry. She needed fences strong enough to keep the bad stuff out,
Right.
but also gates in those fences to let the good stuff in and let the bad stuff out that was already inside her soul.
So it's not isolation. It's about creating a safe, defined space for healthy connection.
Precisely. Which leads to the question, how do these invisible boundaries actually show up? How do we see them or use them? The book breaks it down into several key components. Practical stuff.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, words. Simple but fundamental. The word no.
The big one.
It's the basic tool. It tells others, hey, I exist apart from you and I'm in control of me. The book mentions being clear in our yes and no, like in Matthew and James, but also it points out that no is often confrontational.
Doesn't always feel good to say it or hear it.
Right. But they argue Scripture actually tells us to confront lovingly, like in Matthew 18, saying, no, that behavior isn't okay. It's crucial for stopping abuse, setting limits.
Okay, so words are foundational. What else?
Truth. Knowing God's truth, as the authors see it, defines your limits and reality. Like the principle, you reap what you sow. Understanding that helps you define yourself in relation to that reality. Living by truth sets realistic expectations.
Makes sense. Truth provides a framework.
Then there's time. Sometimes you need to take time off from a person or a project, temporarily step back to regain control.
Like needing space.
Exactly. To give the example of adult kids needing time away from parents to build new, healthier ways of relating. Ecclesiastes talks about a time to embrace and a time to refrain.
So time isn't necessarily rejection. It's a tool for health.
Yes, it can actually deepen relationships eventually. And similar to that is emotional distance. This is a temporary boundary, purely for safety, never meant to be permanent walling off.
Okay, when would you use that?
Crucial in abusive or really toxic situations. You guard your heart, limit vulnerability until you see real demonstrated change, like Luke talking about fruit in keeping with repentance.
So not just words, actual change.
Right. Continuing to be emotionally open without seeing that change is just unwise, according to the book.
What about other people? How are they a boundary?
Other people themselves can be a boundary. The book emphasizes that people dealing with really tough stuff, addiction, control, abuse, often can't set boundaries alone. They need a support system. A healthy group gives them the external strength and reinforcement to say that first no.
Community is key.
Absolutely. Then are feelings. They're presented as warning signals.
Like a check engine light.
Kind of. Ignoring them, pushing them down can lead to bad choices or even health problems like depression. They signal something's wrong, that a boundary might be needed.
Gotcha. Listen to your gut.
And related are attitudes and choices. People with boundary problems often have distorted attitudes, right? Like thinking holding someone accountable is mean.
Yeah, I've heard that. I don't want to hurt their feelings.
But the book points to Proverbs, saying setting limits can actually save lives. It's about taking responsibility for our choices, not using phrases like, I had to, or she made me. That fosters self-control.
Moving from victim language to ownership language.
Precisely.
Yes.
And finally, limits both internal and external. Internal limits are about self-control without just stuffing things down. Saying no to our own impulses, even good desires, if the timing or situation is wrong.
Okay, self-discipline.
And external limits mean separating from destructive people sometimes, like Matthew 18 or 1 Corinthians 5 talk about. It's about protecting love by standing against what destroys it.
Wow, that's a lot of components. Oh wait, you mentioned talents too.
Right, talents. They use the parable of the talents. Our God-given abilities are things we're responsible for. We need to steward them, develop them, use them. That's part of owning our property.
Not letting them go to waste or expecting someone else to manage them for us.
Exactly. It's about active stewardship.
That's a really thorough picture of what boundaries are. So helpful. Now let's flip it. What happens when things go wrong? The boundary problems. The book highlights two main traps. Let's start with the first one. Compliance. Saying yes to the bad. This is the classic people pleaser, right? The person who just can't say no, even when it's clearly hurting them.
Yep. They melt into others' demands.
They tell the story of Robert, who couldn't say no to his wife's demands and was literally going broke trying to keep up.
And the roots went deep for him, didn't they? Back to childhood.
Yeah, he talked about this strange double standard with his older sisters, lots of physical fights. He basically learned that saying no or setting a boundary was bad, maybe even dangerous.
And that's so often the case, isn't it? This compliant behavior is frequently a sign of a deep boundary injury from childhood. When parents teach kids, even unintentionally, that saying no is wrong, that their needs don't matter, they're basically sending them out into the world defenseless.
That's a scary thought.
It is. Think about blocking a child's ability to say no, or I disagree, or stop, that hurts, or I don't like being touched there. That handicaps them for life, the book argues. It removes their basic self-protection.
So compliant people end up with these fuzzy and indistinct boundaries.
Exactly. They melt into others, can't stand alone. They become chameleons, pretending to like things just to avoid conflict.
Losing their own sense of self in the process.
Completely. Becomes hard to tell where they end and others begin.
Okay, so that's the compliant side. Now, here's where it gets really interesting for me. The flip side. Controllers. Not respecting others' boundaries.
Yes. The ones who don't take no for an answer.
Exactly. The book uses Steve, the boss, as an example, insisting his assistant Frank work unpaid overtime, changing Frank's vacation.
Calling him at home during dinner.
Right, because Steve needed Frank. And for Steve, Frank saying no wasn't a boundary, it was just a challenge, something to overcome.
And if we connect that to the bigger picture, the core problem for controllers is projecting responsibility. They expect others to carry their load. They use control tactics, bullying, manipulation, aggression, whatever works, to make others take responsibility for things the book argues are theirs alone.
They genuinely believe no means maybe, and maybe means yes.
Which causes incredible damage, not just to the people they control, but ultimately to themselves too.
How so?
Controllers end up isolated. People stick around out of fear or guilt or dependency, but not love. The book quotes 1 John, "There is no fear in love."
So they don't experience real connection.
Rarely. They know deep down if they stop the pressure, people might leave. They feel that isolation acutely.
So this raises a question. What actually works with the controller? What's the remedy?
The book is pretty blunt here. The only effective remedy is to let controllers experience the consequences of their own irresponsibility.
Ouch. That sounds tough.
It is tough. It means others must set and hold their boundaries firmly. That forces the controller to confront their own behavior and its impact. No more enabling.
How boundaries are developed and maintained.
Now, thinking about how boundaries actually develop, this is where the book brings in a really core principle, something that pushes back against a lot of self-help thinking.
Okay, what's that?
You cannot develop or set boundaries apart from supportive relationships with God and with other people.
So you can't just will yourself into having good boundaries in isolation.
Exactly. The book literally says, don't even try to start setting limits until you have entered into deep, abiding attachments with people who will love you no matter what.
Yeah.
Our deepest need, they argue, is to belong, to be in relationship. They reference 1 John saying God is love, which implies relationship. And even Genesis, it is not good for man to be alone. We need connection and support to grow.
That makes sense. You need a safe base to operate from.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's unpack this developmental journey. The book uses a psychological framework, right? Margaret Mahler's work.
Yes, the phases of separation, individuation. It's a powerful way to understand how we learn boundaries literally from infancy. How we go from feeling merged with mom to being a separate person.
Okay, walk us through it. What's the first phase?
It's called hatching, usually around 5 to 10 months old. This is when the baby starts to get a tiny inkling. Mommy and me aren't the same.
How does that look?
They might get restless, wiggly, less content just being held. They start getting interested in the world beyond mom toys, other faces. It's a subtle shift, the first hint of separateness.
Okay, hatching, then what?
Then comes practicing, from about 10 to 18 months. This is when they get that huge burst of energy and start exploring. The classic toddler getting into everything stage.
Right. Baby's first steps, often away from mom.
Exactly. They're driven by discovery.
Yeah.
And the parent's job here is crucial. Set realistic limits to keep them safe, but without crushing that enthusiasm.
Find that balance.
Yes. The book connects this to Proverbs' description of a youth lacking judgment, acting on impulse like an adult stuck in that uninhibited practicing phase without internal limits.
Interesting. Okay, hatching, practicing. What's next?
Rapprochement, roughly 18 months to 3 years. The word means sort of coming back together harmoniously.
So they come back to mom.
In a way, they swing back to reality after the I can do anything feeling of the practicing phase. They realize, okay, I can't do everything. I still need mom. But they're also asserting their individuality more. And this is the stage where the word no gets perfected. It's their first real verbal boundary.
The infamous no stage.
Precisely. And parents have two critical jobs here. First, help the child feel safe enough to say no. Listen to it, acknowledge it, even if you can't always give them what they want. Knowledgeable parents, the book says, won't get offended by the no. They help the child learn their no is just as lovable as their yes. They stay connected emotionally.
Okay, safety to say no and staying connected even during resistance, that sounds vital.
Absolutely foundational for healthy boundaries later on.
And the book points out these early struggles aren't just a one-time thing, right? They get replayed later.
Exactly. Adolescence and young adulthood are basically reenactments of these boundary issues, but with bigger stakes: sexuality, identity, career, intimacy. If you navigated those first 3 years reasonably well, the book suggests adolescence and adulthood tend to go a bit smoother, though never perfectly, of course.
Of course, life happens.
Which brings us to, why do so many people struggle with boundaries as adults? Where does development go wrong? The book identifies several common boundary injuries. One big one is parental criticism of boundaries.
Like, do it my way or else.
Yes, or don't you dare talk back to me. It punishes the child's natural attempts to separate and define themselves, creates hurt and resentment instead of healthy self-control.
Okay, criticism. What else?
A really damaging combination is lack of parental limits plus a lack of connection. This, the book argues, can create aggressively controlling adults. Think of the kid having a meltdown in the store to get what they want. Now imagine that kid at 40 when their desires are blocked. Same explosion, basically.
Wow. And the recovery path for that is often pretty rough, huh?
Often involves major consequences, the book suggests, because, as they put it, we always reap what we sow. Alcoholism in the family is another huge source of boundary confusion, creates double-minded people, unsure of what's theirs and what's not, always feeling unsafe in relationships.
Constantly walking on eggshells.
Exactly. And finally, specific traumas abuse, emotional, physical, sexual, major accidents, illnesses, losses. These can severely injure boundary development. Jerry's story in the book is powerful, his mom hitting him for a small mistake, leading to lifelong compliance out of terror. That fear crippled his adult relationships.
So these backgrounds have a huge impact.
Huge. But the book makes a crucial point. While our background shapes us, we are ultimately responsible for what we do with our injured, immature souls. Healing means facing those injuries and owning our choices now.
That's a tough but empowering message. It leads us right into the practical tools, the 10 laws of boundaries. These seem like core principles for making changes. Let's dig into a few key ones. Maybe start with law #2, the law of responsibility. This tackles that boundaries are selfish myth head on, doesn't it?
It really does. The book clarifies that responsibility includes loving others. They cite Galatians, the command to love being the whole law for Christians. Jesus' command, love each other as I have loved you. So the book argues if you're not loving others, you're actually not being fully responsible for yourself.
Okay, so love is part of responsibility, but where does the boundary come in?
The confusion happens when we blur the lines. We are responsible to love one another, but not be one another. I can't feel for you, think for you, grow for you. That's your job for your life and mine for mine. Philippians talks about working out your own salvation.
Okay, personal responsibility for growth.
And here's the kicker. The book argues it's also responsible and loving to set limits on someone else's destructive behavior.
How is setting limits loving?
Because rescuing someone from the consequences of their actions, as Proverbs suggest, just enables bad patterns. It's like with kids not setting limits is actually hurtful because it doesn't help them learn responsibility. It can lead them down a destructive path.
So true responsibility and true love require boundaries. They're not opposites.
Exactly what the book contends. Okay, another powerful one. Law, #4, the law of power. This gets at our attempts to change other people.
Which usually don't work.
Right. The book says flat out, you don't have the power to change other people. You can't make them choose differently, think differently, act differently.
So what power do we have?
Power over ourselves. And that's where the real leverage is. The advice is, since you cannot get them to change, you must change yourself so that their destructive patterns no longer work on you.
Change my response, my engagement.
Yes, which might influence them to change if their old ways stop working. But the focus is on what you can control.
So what actions can we take? What's within our power?
The book lists several things. First, agree with the truth about your own problems. Confession, owning it. Second, submit your inability to God and ask for help. Humility, recognizing you can't fix it all yourself. Third, search and ask for clarity on what is actually your responsibility, your property. Fourth, turn from the evil you find in yourself. Repentance, actively changing your own problematic patterns. And fifth, humble yourself and ask for help with those deeper developmental injuries, recognizing you need support.
So it's all about focusing power where it actually resides within ourselves. Okay, this next one is fascinating. Law, #6, the law of motivation. Why do we say yes when we mean no? What's driving that?
Fear, mostly. The book identifies several false motives. One is fear of loss of love or abandonment. This drives the martyr types who give constantly, hoping to earn love and feel devastated when it doesn't come back the way they expect.
Giving with strings attached, maybe unconsciously?
Often unconsciously, yes. Another is fear of others' anger. Some people just cannot handle someone being mad at them. The discomfort is too much.
So they avoid conflict at all costs.
Exactly. Then there's fear of loneliness, complying because you think it will buy you connection, sacrificing yourself for company. And fourth, fear of losing the good me inside. This is subtle. We're made to love, the book says, so not loving feels painful. People struggle to imagine saying, I love you, and I don't want to do that because they think love always means saying yes.
Equating love with constant agreement or service?
Right. The goal is to get beyond those fears, to be able to genuinely say, I love you and I don't want to do that, acting from free choice, not fear. Which brings us to a really important point for people pleasers. Law, #7, the law of pain. If setting a boundary causes someone pain, does that mean the boundary is bad?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The guilt factor.
Huge guilt factor. But the book makes a crucial distinction using a great analogy. Things can hurt and not harm us, and things that feel good can be very harmful.
Like surgery hurts, but it's good for you. Junk food feels good, but...
Exactly. The story of Jason agonizing over hurting someone by saying no illustrates this. The other person's disappointment or anger. That's discomfort, the book argues, not necessarily harm.
So don't let their reaction stop you from setting a needed boundary?
Precisely. Setting boundaries, saying no when you need to, is part of living responsibly and purposefully. The temporary pain involved can actually be a sign of growth for both people.
Okay, shifting gears slightly. Law, #9, the law of activity. This one is about being proactive, right? Not just reactive.
Yes. The book says, many times we have boundary problems because we lack initiative. We wait for life to happen to us.
Instead of making things happen.
Right. They contrast this with the parable of the talents the successful servants were. Active, assertive, took initiative. The unsuccessful one was passive.
And passivity can be dangerous.
The book argues it can be an ally of evil by not pushing back. Passivity doesn't achieve good results. God wants us to be active, they suggest. He'll meet our effort, but won't do our work for us that would violate our boundaries.
So knock, seek, ask. Be assertive in our own lives.
And connecting all this back to communication. Law, #10, the law of exposure. This is key. Boundaries exist whether we talk about them or not.
What happens if we don't talk about them?
They don't just disappear, they come out sideways. Indirect communication, manipulation, resentment. It causes huge problems in relationships.
Hidden agendas, passive aggression.
All of it. The book points to Ephesians. Put off falsehood and speak truthfully. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry. The mandate is honesty, openness, bringing boundaries into the light.
Because that's what builds real intimacy, not hidden false relationships.
Exactly.
Okay, those laws provide a great framework, but we still run into mental blocks, right? Let's tackle some common boundary myths. These really hold people back. First, big one. Myth, #1. Boundaries are selfish. We touched on this, but it's worth repeating.
Absolutely. It's probably the number one accusation.
So the distinction, again, selfishness versus...
Stewardship.
Yeah.
Selfishness is focusing only on your own desires, ignoring your responsibility to love others. Stewardship is responsibly developing your life, your abilities protecting what the book calls God's investment in you. Your soul, time, talents.
So caring for yourself is part of the job description, basically.
Yes. And we might not always want what we need. Like Paul's thorn deviating off her, God said no to his wish for healing, but met his deeper need for strength and weakness. So saying no to protect God's investment isn't selfish, it's stewardship. Then there's myth, #2. Boundaries are a sign of disobedience. This taps into religious guilt, doesn't it? The idea that if you're not complying, you have a hard heart.
Yeah, that's a heavy one.
But the book flips it. Often, a lack of boundaries signals disobedience. People who seem compliant on the outside, they might be full of internal rebellion and resentment.
Like Barry, who said a half-hearted yes after church because he was scared.
Exactly. And the core insight here is powerful. If we can't say no, we can't say yes, meaning true obedience, real love, genuine responsibility that has to come from a place of freedom, from love, not fear or compulsion. God loves a cheerful giver, right? Not someone forced into it. Being able to say no clarifies your motives and allows for genuine, heartfelt yeses.
Okay, what about the fear of backlash? Myth #3. If I begin setting boundaries, I will be hurt by others.
Understandable fear, but the book reframes it. Boundaries are defensive, not offensive. They're shields, not swords.
Protecting your stuff, not attacking theirs.
Right. They stop your treasure's time, energy from being taken inappropriately. Saying no to a responsible adult might inconvenience them, make them find another solution, but the book argues it doesn't injure them.
Discomfort isn't injury.
Exactly. And having a good support system helps here. If one person says no, you have somewhere else to turn. Even God says no to us sometimes, and the book suggests he's not worried about injuring us. He knows we need to take responsibility. Now, myth #5. Boundaries mean that I am angry. Why do people connect boundaries with anger?
Good question. It feels like setting a limit is an angry act sometimes.
It often stems from families where conflict wasn't allowed, where differences were suppressed. Nathan's story in the book, his ideal family, avoided conflict, so he learned conflict meant loss of love.
Which left him totally unprepared for real life, especially his difficult marriage.
Totally. He realized his parents lovingly frustrated his attempts at boundaries using guilt or anger. The truth, the book argues, is that anger can be a signal that a boundary has been violated, like a radar.
Okay, so anger is data.
It can be.
Yeah.
And as you get better at setting boundaries proactively, you actually need the anger less because you spot the violation coming and head it off before it escalates. Healthy boundaries prevent the buildup of resentment that leads to blow-ups.
All right, let's clarify myth #6. Boundaries will injure others. We talked about discomfort, but this myth says our boundaries actually harm people.
Yeah, and the book draws a sharp line here. Having inappropriate boundaries set on us can definitely injure us, especially as kids. Robert being left alone in his crib, his parents' no to his needs did cause injury.
Okay, so being subjected to bad boundaries hurts.
Yes, but our healthy boundaries, set appropriately with responsible adults, the book says they don't injure. We're just defining our space. Think golden rule. Do unto others. If we want our boundaries respected, we respect theirs. Our boundaries don't attack, they protect. And the final big one, myth #7. Boundaries cause feelings of guilt. That nagging feeling.
Oh, Susie's story illustrated this perfectly, making her own life choices, career, marriage, moving away, but still feeling bad, like she should be doing what her parents wanted.
Exactly. The guilt wasn't necessarily because her parents were villains, but because she lacked internal emotional permission to be separate, to make free choices without that guilt reflex kicking in.
Yeah.
It's an internal issue, a learned response.
So how do you break free from that?
The book's advice is powerful. Stop blaming others for making you feel guilty. When you do that, they still have power over you.
Oof. Taking ownership of the guilt itself.
Yes. Don't feel obligated to constantly explain or justify your choices to guilt senders. The book says only guilty children do that. State your choice clearly, maybe offer understanding, but don't get sucked into justifying yourself just to appease their or your own guilt.
Boundaries in relationships and life areas.
Okay, let's apply these ideas. One of the toughest places for boundaries is often family, especially family of origin.
Oh, absolutely. Major battleground.
The book mentions several common issues, like the second fiddle problem.
Right, where a spouse feels their partner is still more loyal to mom and dad than to the marriage, failing to fully leave and cleave.
The financial dependence. Terry and Sherry's story looking successful but constantly needing family bailouts.
And the book is blunt. That eroded Terry's self-respect. To be an adult, you live within your means, pay for your own mistakes.
Closely related is the perpetual child syndrome. Financially okay, maybe, but still relying on parents for everything. Laundry, meals, emotional support, vacations. Still acting like a kid well into their 30s.
The parents are kind of preventing them from fully launching, often unintentionally.
And you mentioned parentified children earlier, the ones who had to take care of irresponsible parents growing up.
Yes, they often feel deeply codependent, like it's selfish to have their own life. Janice's story captures that over-responsibility perfectly.
And triangulation. That pattern of bringing a third person into a two-person conflict.
Super destructive. The rule is simple. Don't say something about someone to a third party that you're not willing to say to them directly. These patterns just keep dysfunction going. This whole family discussion raises that loyalty question again, doesn't it? Spiritual ties versus family ties.
Yeah, what if obeying God, as you understand it, causes family conflict?
The book points to Jesus' words about setting family members against each other sometimes, or identifying his true family as those who do God's will. The argument is that our primary allegiance is to God's family and his standards, truth, limits, responsibility, forgiveness.
Which might put us at odds with our family of origins patterns.
It often does, which leads directly to forgiveness and freedom. Unforgiveness, the book says, keeps you tied to the person who hurt you. You're stuck demanding something they won't give.
So forgiveness is about cutting those ties.
It's about letting go. Cut it loose and you will be free. It's not excusing the past, but releasing yourself from its grip so you can set healthy boundaries now.
Okay, moving beyond family. Boundaries are crucial in friendships too, right? Having that support group is key.
Essential, especially when navigating tricky friend dynamics, the compliant friend dealing with a controlling one or a manipulative one, or even just a friend who's totally unresponsive.
Can you set limits with friends without ruining the friendship?
The book says yes, absolutely. Real friendship needs honest limits. But it also makes that sobering point. Ultimately, the only thing keeping friends around is love, and we can't control that.
But as we grow more secure, we trust that healthy relationships can handle limits.
Exactly. The limits actually strengthen genuine connections. And in romance and dating, boundaries are non-negotiable there.
Seems obvious, but maybe not always practiced.
Right. People might relax boundaries early on, trying to impress, but the book stresses truth-telling in romance helps define the relationship. It clarifies expectations, shows who you are. Saying no, introducing reality, needing space, relying on friends for perspective, these all help you choose healthier partners and become healthier yourself.
Now, spouses. The book says more marriages fail because of poor boundaries than anything else. That's a huge statement.
It is, and the core challenge is that whole becoming one flesh idea while still being two separate people. How do you merge without losing yourself?
Where do couples typically struggle with boundaries?
Communication of feelings is a big one. Saying, I feel that you, instead of owning it, I feel sad, hurt, lonely. Starting with, I feel, is the beginning of intimacy, the book argues.
Taking responsibility for your own emotions. And if you're angry,
go to your spouse, talk about it directly, don't let it fester into bitterness. And setting limits is vital. Bob and Nancy's story, Bob had to learn to set his limits, not just wish Nancy would change. That forced her to realize the world didn't revolve around her.
applying those boundary laws within the marriage.
Absolutely. Sowing and reaping, letting consequences happen for yelling or overspending. Law of power, accepting your spouse. Using consequences instead of nagging. Respecting each other's skin, physical boundaries. Using clear words, no passive aggression. Allowing for individual time, like the Proverbs 31 wife who clearly had her own life. And the book makes that really provocative claim about submission.
Right. Never seen a submission problem that didn't have a controlling husband at its root.
Wow. Their argument is when the wife sets healthy boundaries, the controlling husband's immaturity gets exposed because his usual tactics don't work anymore. It forces growth, often painfully.
So it's about balance.
Yeah.
Togetherness and separateness. Meredith's feeling abandoned because Paul always needed to be with friends. That's imbalance.
Healthy marriage needs both. Mutual respect for individuality and a desire for shared time. A mutual longing.
Okay, let's talk about boundaries in your children. The goal is character development, right?
Yeah.
Parents as guardian, manager, source.
Yes, protecting kids who lack wisdom and want instant gratification. They don't have those internal boundaries fully formed yet.
So parents provide the external ones initially.
Exactly, which leads to that crucial difference between discipline and punishment. How does the book define them?
Punishment is payment for past wrongs, something they argue Christ took care of. It looks backward.
Discipline, on the other hand, is about natural consequences and looks forward. It teaches kids how not to make the same mistake again. Hebrews says God disciplines us for our good, to share his holiness. It builds internal boundaries and responsibility.
And kids need to learn self-protection, right? How to say no to the truth, keep distance when needed.
Absolutely. The contrast between Jimmy and Paul is stark. Jimmy's mom let him disagree, practice boundaries early. He could resist peer pressure later.
Paul's parents met his no with hurt or anger.
Creating a compliant false self and later resentment, he wasn't equipped.
And a key skill here is delay of gratification, saying no to yourself now for a future good.
Yes, like Jesus enduring the cross. But the book stresses this only develops after a foundation of safety and attachment is built. Grace first, then truth. Secure connection before healthy separation.
Which leads into adolescence. Parents shift from control to influence.
Right, deparenting. More freedom, more responsibility. The tricky part is finding the balance, not too strict, not too lenient, like trying to be their buddy instead of a parent with limits.
Okay, shifting to the workplace. Another minefield for boundaries. What are common problems here?
Job overload is huge. Taking responsibility for your own workload, setting limits on overtime, clarifying your job description, prioritizing, like Moses needing Jethro's advice to delegate.
Can't do it all. Need to manage expectations.
And manage misplaced priorities. Means setting limits on yourself, knowing your capacity, saying no to the rest, communicating realistically what you can achieve.
What about conflicts with authority? Boss problem.
Often stems from transference, the book says, projecting past issues with parents onto your current boss. Recognizing that pattern is the first step.
And expecting too much from work, like wanting it to be your family.
Yeah, looking for nurturing or approval that work isn't designed to give. Work expects adult functioning, not fulfillment of childhood needs.
And finally, bringing stress home, not dealing with work conflicts at work.
So it spills over, affecting your health and personal life. Clear boundaries between work and home are vital.
Now here's where it gets really interesting. Boundaries and yourself. The limits we need with ourselves.
Yes, the internal boundaries.
Areas like eating, money, time management, procrastination, over-talking, sexuality, substances.
All of it. Even if it stems from past issues, the book insists our self-boundary conflicts are our responsibility now.
Can't just blame the past forever.
Right. And the consistent message comes back. You can't fix these internal boundary issues alone. You need support.
Why is support so crucial for internal stuff?
Because safe relationships provide crucial feedback. Others can gently show us how our lack of self-control hurts them, like Keith's friend did. That feedback, given in love, is powerful.
But choose your support wisely.
Definitely. Avoid overly critical people or those who try to rescue you. Find friends who are loving but hold you accountable. And this raises a really profound question. What about God and boundaries? Does God operate with limits?
Does he? How so?
The book argues, yes, absolutely. He respects our boundaries. He leaves work for us to do. He allows consequences for our actions, wanting us to learn, not rescuing us from everything. He pleads, but won't force himself on us if we truly want to be left alone.
So he doesn't just barge in and fix everything.
Not typically, no. He respects our agency, our property.
And what about the other way around? Our respect for his boundaries.
Just as important. When God says no, like to Paul's thorn, the book says that's his right, his freedom. We can't manipulate him or get angry when he doesn't do exactly what we want.
We have to respect his no, too.
If we want a real relationship, yes. They use the parable of the wedding banquet God adapts when people refuse his invitation. He takes responsibility for their choice by inviting others. He respects their boundary and exercises his own.
Okay, let's talk about pushing through the hard part. Resistance to boundaries. That feeling when you try to set one.
It can be intense. The book makes a great distinction. React versus respond.
Explain that.
When someone else's actions cause havoc in your life and you just react emotionally, they're in control. But when you learn to respond thoughtfully, you stay in control. You have options, choices. It's about reclaiming your agency.
Shifting from knee-jerk reaction to considered response.
And dealing with the other person's anger. This is a big one.
And what if they get furious when you set a boundary?
The book's perspective is clear. The person angry at your boundary is the one with the problem, not you. Your boundary is actually helping them learn self-control, even if they hate it initially.
So how do you handle their anger?
Stay loving but firm. Speak the truth in love. Be ready to use physical distance if needed. I won't be yelled at. I'm going into the other room until we can talk calmly. Not angry, just clear. When their anger stops working to control you, they have to find healthier ways.
And then there's the guilt. We keep coming back to it. If guilt works on you.
It's your internal problem, the book stresses. Stop blaming them for making you feel guilty. That gives them the power.
So again, own the feeling and don't.
Don't explain or justify endlessly. Only guilty children do that. State your choice. Don't get drawn into their guilt trip. But why is it so hard internally? Why do we resist setting boundaries we know we need? Internal resistance.
We're lost again.
Deep down, yes. Afraid of losing love, connection, approval. We unconsciously sabotage our own freedom.
So what are the steps to overcome that internal resistance?
Own it. First, admit your boundarylessness is part of the problem. Realize the resistance. Confess the fear. Get support. Seek grace and truth in safe relationships. Identify the wish. Who or what are you afraid to let go of? And then move on. Take action. God can only steer a moving ship, the book says. Grieve what you have to let go of.
That sounds like hard work, but what's the payoff?
Freedom.
Yeah.
New possibilities. Deeper understanding of God, yourself, the world. Peacefulness. Self-control.
And the book offers tools for the journey.
Yes. Pray. Develop your gifts. Take classes. Get counseling. Lean on your support group. 2 are better than 1. Practice forgiveness. It unhooks you from the hurt.
Yeah.
And here's a fascinating final thought on guilt from the book. Feeling guilty after setting a boundary can actually be a sign of success.
How can guilt be good?
Because it means you're breaking free. You're no longer being a slave to others' wishes. That old guilt reflex is firing, but you're acting differently. Look at Sherry's transformation. Her day in a life with boundaries shows her handling calls, work demands, church stuff, her husband, all differently. Her anger became a helpful signal. She started being attracted to other people with good boundaries.
Even her marriage improved.
Dramatically. Walt actually started missing her, falling in love with the real Sherry, the one with boundaries. It led to a more mutual, responsible relationship. The core truth. We love because he first loved us. We value ourselves when we've been treasured.
So what does this all mean? What's the ultimate goal here? It's not just about saying no, is it?
No, the ultimate target is maturity. The ability to love successfully and work successfully the way God does, according to the author.
Which includes
Fighting for the no of others just as much as our own. Respecting their boundaries, even if it costs us something. That's loving your neighbor as yourself, as Galatians says. So, if we connect this all to the bigger picture, mastering boundaries, it really does transform everything. Intimate relationships, family, work, yourself, God. It's about living authentically, responsibly. Good for you and good for everyone you connect with.
Wow. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting as we wrap up. As you, our listener, consider what you've heard today. Ask yourself, how will you begin to identify and protect the unique time, talents, and treasures that the authors suggest God has allocated specifically to you? What no do you maybe need to say to create space for a more profound, gratitude-driven yes in your life? The journey, yeah, it won't be without resistance, internal or external, but the freedom, the deeper connections on the other side, they sound absolutely worth every step. If you're enjoying what you hear, please consider taking a moment to subscribe, rate, like, and comment on any of the platforms you're listening from. This really helps support our channel and allows us to get better and bring you even more great content. If today's review sparked your interest and you're ready to dive into a copy of the book, please consider using the link in our description to make your purchase. Not only does it make it easy for you to get your hands on the book, but it also directly supports our channel and the author, allowing us to keep bringing you more great content. Thanks again for being a part of the Daily Review community.